Hello and welcome to the Herzog Leadership Series. My name is Riley Stapleton, and today I am joined by Jeff Davison, the General Counsel for Herzog. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Riley. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I just want to jump right in and kind of hear a little bit about you, kind of tell me the story of your career, where you started, and how you got to where you are today.
Well, I grew up on a farm south of Savannah, Missouri, just north of here, and went to college at Northwest Missouri State. And while I was going to college, one of my professors asked me to see him after class, and so I did. And when I did, he handed me a pamphlet, and he said, you need to read this and then go take the LSAT. And I had no idea what an LSAT was. I've since learned that it's the law school admissions test. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, do I need to do this to graduate? And he says, no, but you need to take it. So I read the pamphlet and went down and got enrolled and took the test. And then after I got the test, they had you apply for law school, which I did, and I was accepted. And was fortunate enough to graduate and pretty high in my class, which is what you had to do to get a decent job. So I landed a job with a downtown Kansas City law firm, and it was probably one of the absolute best things that could have ever happened to me. In law school, they teach you a lot of theories and things, but they really don't teach you how to practice law, write an agreement, and do some of the basic things. The senior partner at the law firm that I was assigned to went to law school at Harvard, and he was extremely demanding, and he would typically give me an assignment to draft an agreement, for example, and I would work on it, turn it in, and usually on Friday afternoons he would summons me down to his office, and we sat at a table just a little bit larger than this one, and I would look over at my agreement, and back in those days he had red ink pen and he had written all over it and basically rewrote the entire agreement. Mm-hmm. And my first thought was, if you were going to do that, you should have just done it yourself. But I didn't appreciate then, as much as I do now, how much that mentoring that he did for me, how that really instilled, I guess, the strive for excellence. He would tell me, Jeff, what you've done here is fundamentally sound. That's an agreement that would work, but this is our shop here with my name on it, and this is the sort of work product that we're going to produce. And so that was a takeaway that I learned from that. And honestly, I probably would have stayed with the Kansas City law firm. My young attorneys that are associates are expected for the big law firms to work long hours, and we typically work 7 days a week. So I was leaving the office one night, going to the parking garage in downtown Kansas City, and witnessed a gentleman getting robbed at gunpoint. We had just had our first child, and I was thinking, do I really want to raise a family in this sort of environment in Kansas City? And the short answer was no, I really didn't want that. So if I was thinking of somebody other than myself, I was thinking about the family, it was better to do something different. So there was an opening with a law firm here in St. Joseph, Missouri, that was looking for an attorney, and I applied, and they hired me, and their client, one of their clients that they had just recently started representing, was Herzog. And so I continued the same, I guess, work ethic that I developed in Kansas City at that law firm, where I continued to work 7 days a week and long hours. And I found that just by virtue of being in the office more, I ended up doing more and more of Herzog's work. And that's how I kind of got to be where I was working for Herzog.
Yeah, oh, it's amazing. You touched on it with a few things, kind of like, the mentorship that you received, but, what do you think kind of enabled your rise throughout your career?
Well, I mentioned that I grew up south of Savannah. My parents didn't have a lot of money, and but the one thing they taught me was a good work ethic and the value of hard work. And I feel like over the years that has benefited me, because I know I'm not always the brightest guy in the room, but I also know that I can outwork them, and that's what I did in law school. There were a lot of very intelligent, smart people in law school, but to be honest with you, a lot of them didn't even graduate. They flunked out. They say in law school, look to your left and look to your right, because on graduation day, one of you won't be there, and that attrition rate was pretty accurate. And it wasn't because they weren't smart. They were extremely bright. They just didn't apply themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I understand. Kind of on this topic, I mean, you touched on just, hard work. Are there any other values or beliefs that you really attribute to your success?
I would answer that by saying that when you get an assignment, and this is one of the things I've learned for Herzog, is that the more assignments you do and that you timely complete, the more you get to do for Herzog. And so I would say a do it now approach. With the law business, when a lawsuit's filed, typically you have 30 days to file a answer or responsive pleading to that. When Herzog would be sued, we decided to take more of a do it now aggressive approach, and if we were allowed 30 days, we would try to turn it in like 5 days and flip it back to the other side. Typically, they weren't expecting that. Most lawyers will wait. If they have 30 days to do something, they'll wait to the 28th or 29th day to start it. And then if they can't get it completed, they'll ask for an extension time, either from the opposing attorney, or if that's not granted, they'll go to the court and ask for more time. It's kind of like, it's March Madness now with basketball games. Sometimes you'll find teams that will full court press, and they're making up a difference of maybe their height or their talent, and sometimes the more aggressive team wins. And we adopted that here at Herzog. When we got sued, we would take the approach, maybe the best defense is a good offense, and what can we do offensively and to push the envelope. And then that bled over into negotiating agreements for Herzog. To be honest with you, sometimes I couldn't always understand why the opposing attorney was trying to get certain language in an agreement, but I took the approach, why don't I just be a little contrarian here, and whatever they're wanting, kind of take the opposite view, even if I don't understand why they're trying to force this language to us. And oftentimes that's worked out well for us over the years.
Yeah. No, I really like that full court press comparison. That's a good comparison. I'm a basketball guy, so that computes in my head.
Good.
No, that's awesome. On a more, I feel like this kind of ties in, but like on a technical side, do you think you just have any natural skills or abilities, that you kind of just have a natural knack for anything that's really helped you?
I don't know that it's good to talk about me in this sense, but I've always felt like if you humble yourself and you treat others like you want to be treated, that you'll get along a lot better in life. And there was a guy here at Herzog when I first started, Ron Smits. He's since retired. He was one of the humblest guys that I ever knew. And the one thing about Ron is, if he was involved in something, if it went well, he always spread the glory, and he would, tell Stan or Bill Herzog, hey, this is what so-and-so did. It was really them. On the same token, if something ever went bad, he was the first guy to step up. Even if he wasn't 100% at fault, he would take the blame. And you get a trust and a loyalty that you want to work for somebody like that. So I think that's an attribute that if you're really wanting to be successful here at Herzog, if you can humble yourself, be a little less self-centered, that you'll do well.
Absolutely. That's the wheel and me mentality that we talk about. Can you just talk to me about some challenges that you've faced in your career and how you've overcome those?
Well, one of the things I learned here at Herzog, and started with Bill Herzog, and we always had Saturday mornings where we'd go around the table and talk about whatever problems we're faced with. It was that Herzog's approach to problem solving. And Bill transferred that down to Stan Herzog when Stan was running the company. Stan always believed that one mind is good, two minds is better, three is probably better than two, and you make better decisions. So I think you need to understand that in the way I've learned from Herzog how we solve problems here is we sit down, we know we're not always going to have the answer, right? So you reach out to people that you work with, and you get the right group in the room, right? And you pick their brains, and you come up with normally the right decision. And as Stan would always say, it's the best decision we could make at this time based on the information we have. Let's go with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there a time in your career that you made a mistake, but you look back and you think it was a really good learning opportunity?
Well, I'll tell you about an experience I had with Bill Herzog, and I had the pleasure of working with Bill, and he was one of the most positive, upbeat guys that you'd ever want to be around. You would have enjoyed Bill if you got to know him. But Bill told me once, he said, Jeff, I'm going to tell you something. He said, the only person that doesn't ever make a mistake is the person that doesn't do anything. And he says, I really don't want people like that working for me. And what he taught me from that is that there's a significance to doing something. And when invariably, you'll eventually make a mistake. But Bill was willing to risk a mistake because he valued the fact that you're doing something is more times than not going to work out well than the one time that it doesn't, right? And he was willing to take that risk with you. I recall we were negotiating a quarry lease agreement down in Arkansas. Would have been in the early 80s. And I went to Bill to get some direction, and Bill finally says, Jeff, just do what you think is the best thing to do. And he says, we'll live with it, but do something. And what I learned from that is sometimes the failure to make a decision is the wrong decision. That is the mistake. And then a little twist I learned from Stan Herzog, his son, was Stan would always ask when we would have meetings like that and we were looking for direction from him, he would sometimes ask the question, do I need to make this decision right now? And that's another good twist to that thinking process that I've learned here at Herzog.
Yeah, I really like that perspective, especially what Bill said. It's a good story. My next question for you is, today, what continues to motivate you to pursue excellence?
Well, I mentioned it before, the working for the senior partner in the downtown Kansas City law firm he would never want you to just go and pull a form agreement that you could get out of a book. His theory was if it's coming out of his shop, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good for the client. And he says you always have to write agreements based on your past experiences. So if you've had a problem in the past, figure out a way in your agreement to write the language so that we don't have that issue, or if it pops up again, that your client's in the better negotiating position because of the language that you've written. So it's kind of that get better each day with each agreement, and just don't take the easy route of pulling some canned or template or form agreement and trying to use that.
Amen. Absolutely. The last thing I have for you, and I feel like there's been a lot of good advice and wisdom during this conversation, but just finally, if someone wanted to be in your shoes one day, what is one piece of advice that you would give them?
Well, think of others. Relationships matter, and the way you build those relationships is you treat others the way you want to be treated, but you also have to die a little bit to your human nature of wanting to be selfish. And again, if you do that, I almost guarantee you're going to do well here at Herzog and be successful.